Hello, and welcome to the Managing Stress and Building Resilience webinar. My name is Dr. Omar Kowlessar. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I will be guiding you through this webinar today, which lasts approximately 15 minutes. I hope you find it useful. Over the course of this webinar, we will cover the following areas: to understand what stress is and how it affects the body, to identify a range of strategies to reduce stress by becoming more resilient, and finally, to understand where to go for additional support. According to the NHS, stress can be defined as the body's reaction to feeling threatened or under pressure. It is very common and can be motivating to help us achieve things in our daily life and can help us meet the demands of home, work and family life. Believe it or not, stress is not a modern day phenomenon. In fact, it goes hand in hand with being human and is key to our survival as a species. Let's get into this in a bit more detail. The body responds to stress in a very specific way. The nervous system responds by releasing a flood of stress hormones, including adrenaline and cortisol, which rouse the body for emergency action. Your heart pounds faster, muscles tighten, blood pressure rises, breath quickens, and your senses become sharper. Despite being adaptive and even beneficial in small doses, if the body is subjected to stress repeatedly and for prolonged periods of time, this can have a damaging effect, some of which include general aches and pains, headaches, indigestion or acid reflux, stomach ulcers, changes to appetite, problems sleeping, sexual dysfunction, clinical levels of anxiety, depression, and weight gain or loss. We sometimes use the term pressure and stress interchangeably, but they are in fact have different qualities and are experienced differently too. Pressure is at times unavoidable. We find it acceptable when we know it is for a short period of time. For example, when working towards a deadline or trying to get a DIY project finished on time. It is associated with higher levels of satisfaction and helps us feel more alert and challenged, especially at work. You can see here that when we are stretched in our work or home life, our performance is at its peak. However, if prolonged and we do not manage the demands placed upon us, we can easily feel strained and overwhelmed, which not only affects our performance, but also our general well-being. Take a moment to reflect on where you feel you currently are on the stress curve. When it comes to resilience, it's so important to realise that adversity doesn't discriminate. Bad things happen to everyone, and often these are completely out of our control. We're going to start off this section by looking at some specific behaviours that we know resilient people engage in. Resilient people accept that bad things happen. They know that suffering is part of everyday life. This doesn't mean they actively welcome it. They're not delusional. They just realise that suffering is part of being human, and that they focus on the things which they can control and let go of the things which are not within their control. Knowing this stops you from feeling discriminated against when the tough times come. Terrible things happen in life. The problem is that nowadays we seem to have forgotten this. We seem to live in a world where shiny, happy photos on Instagram are portrayed as the norm and things that we should all strive to achieve. Resilient people are really good at carefully choosing what they focus their attention on. They focus on what they can control and accept the things that they can't. As humans, we're really good at noticing things. Negative emotions stick to us like glue, whereas the positive things slide off us as if we're made of Teflon. From an evolutionary perspective, focusing on the negative things has been beneficial, especially for our survival. The problem is, in modern life, we're constantly bombarded with threats, and our stress responses are dialed up. Resilient people intentionally and deliberately tune into what's good in their world. Take a moment to reflect. Write down 3 things which you are grateful for today. The final thing resilient people do is question if their thinking or actions is actually helping or hindering them. Having an awareness of this puts you back in the driving seat and back in control of your decision making. In terms of things that we can do to actually improve our resilience and better manage our stress, one method is to ensure that we're achieving a good and consistent work-life balance. If you don't do this, then you're more likely to suffer from burnout. Burnout occurs when you feel overwhelmed and unable to meet your current demands. The negative effects of burnout impact every area of your life, including your personal and social life. It can also have a massive impact on your physical and mental well-being. Work-life balance is important as it allows you to separate your work and home, meaning that pressure of work does not follow you outside of office hours. Being more balanced doesn't mean dramatic upheaval in your life. The small things really do matter. A small investment in the right places can radically transform your relationship and the quality of your life. Everything that you do, every minute that you spend is your choice. You may not go running, keep in touch with relatives, or learn how to cook yummy Thai food. Not because you don't have time, but because it's not a priority. When we say I don't have time, this often means that the activity is not important to me. If I asked you to do an hour's worth of exercise every day, you might say, I don't have time. But if I said I'd give you £100,000, I'm pretty sure that you'd be able to do it. So the point is that time's not a factor. It's that you don't want to do certain things because it's not a priority. Using this language reminds us that time is a choice. We have to choose to fill our lives with the things that deserve to be there. So how do we do that? Well, first we need to figure out what is important to us. When you're thinking about goals, try to think about putting these into different types of category. These could be career, relationships, and self. Most people often think about their career, but neglect relationships and self. Once you've done this, try to get 2 or 3 items in each category. You then need to break these down into doable steps. So maybe you want to be able to run 5k. So the first thing you need to do is figure out a training plan and dig up those trainers at the back of the wardrobe. And then, this is key, you need to make sure that this remains a priority. Put these tasks into a realistic plan and stick to it. Do not be led by your mood, be led by the plan. Plan your week in advance. Whenever I talk to people about having a work-life balance, the first thing they tell me is that they don't have time to do these things. Now, I don't want to minimize anyone's struggles. Some people's lives are tough, and some people have it easier than others. So let's take an objective look at this problem. There are 168 hours in the week. If you're working 40 hours a week and sleeping 8 hours a night, that leaves 72 hours a week for other things. If you're working 50 hours a week, that leaves 62 hours for other things. So in reality, we have plenty of time. The issue is how we choose to spend it. When we have time, most of us pull out the phone, start deleting emails, watch TV, check social media. But small moments can have great power. You can use your bits of time for bits of joy. For example, if you have to spend an hour or so on the train or bus as part of your daily commute, what do you do with that time? You could sit and think about the day ahead. You can daydream until you get to your destination. Or you could choose to read a book or listen to some music or a podcast. If working from home, scheduling breaks to get out of the house and go for a walk. The same can be applied if working in an office. Spend a few moments engaging in some mindfulness activities. If you'd like to have the family over for dinner but can't because of working commitments, could you enjoy a family breakfast instead? We need to carve out time in our busy lives to fit in the things which nourish us. When we choose to focus on what matters, we can build the lives we want in the time we've got. Take a moment and consider this question. Do you do enough exercise to keep fit and well? It is recommended that we engage in 150 minutes of moderate or 75 minutes of vigorous aerobic exercise a week, including 2 bouts of resistance-based exercise. For further information on exercise and the benefits of exercise, please look at the Staying Active webinar. As with exercise and your diet, sleep plays a huge part in your overall well-being. If you don't get enough sleep, you'll become tired, lose concentration, and increase the risk of accidents and disease. So how much do we need? As adults, we should all sleep for between 7 to 9 hours each night. Roughly speaking, that means about a third of our time should be spent sleeping. If you don't get enough sleep, this has a huge impact on your resilience and will increase the risk of physical and mental health problems, as well as lower your immune system. For more information on sleep and the benefits of sleep, please look at the Improving Sleep webinar. Make time for breaks, especially if working from home. If you don't, your ability to problem solve, think outside the box and work effectively will suffer. And think about what you do on those breaks. Can you go for a brisk walk in the fresh air, or have a conversation with someone you live with? Be mindful about your diet. Try to eat well. This ensures that you're getting all the nutrients and energy your body needs. Try to plan your meals in advance and use the Eat Well guide to help you cook healthy meals. When we're stressed, we tend to opt for junk food, and over a period of time, this can have a significant detrimental impact on our health. Try to avoid overindulging on alcohol by sticking to the government's guidelines of 14 units per week. Alcohol has a negative impact on sleep and can affect attention, concentration, as well as our mood. And excessive alcohol use increases the risk of developing long-term health conditions like type 2 diabetes, obesity, and liver disease. For further information, please look at the Diet and Nutrition webinar. Getting out into a green environment, such as a park or going to the countryside, is especially good for you. Even if you don't have a garden or aren't very mobile, caring for plants or animals indoors can still help you benefit from nature. You may already know what helps you feel relaxed. For some people, it's having a bath, listening to music, or taking the dog for a walk. If you know that a certain activity helps you feel more relaxed, make sure you set some time aside to do it. Try to be more present, focused, and engaged. Learning mindfulness skills is a great way to do this. There are lots of apps, self-help books, and free online resources available on the NHS website. Thank you for listening. I hope that you have found this webinar useful. Please feel free to check out the other webinars for further information and advice. If you require further support, you can also get in touch with your GP practice. Take care.